Infinite transparency hypothesis. Abstract. This paper introduces the infinite transparency hypothesis, which proposes that human cooperation structurally necessitates the expansion of informational bandwidth between individuals and institutions. Historically, communication was constrained by time, location, and medium. Digitization removed these constraints, producing asynchronous, global, and persistent flows of information. Social media, economic incentives, and self-tracking technologies have accelerated a trend toward ever-increasing transparency. What was once private becomes systematically shared and logged, traded for predictive insights, attention, or social capital. Drawing from evolutionary biology, economics, and cognitive neuroscience, this paper argues that cooperation scales with transparency, pushing societies toward a glass world of potentially infinite visibility. The hypothesis highlights both the benefits of this process, efficiency, cooperation, innovation, and its risks, loss of privacy, coercion, structural vulnerability. 1. Introduction. Human cooperation has always required information exchange. In pre-digital eras, communication was constrained by physical co-presence and synchronous interaction. Two parties needed to share space and time to coordinate effectively. Digitization removed these constraints. Email enabled asynchronous phone networks, extended reach, and global internet infrastructures rendered communication instantaneous and persistent. This paper advances the infinite transparency hypothesis, the claim that increasing cooperation at scale structurally necessitates rising levels of transparency. 2. Biological and evolutionary foundation. Richard Dawkins, 1976, famously wrote, "We are survival machines, robot vehicles blindly programmed to preserve the selfish molecules known as genes." As biological machines, humans depend on information flows to cooperate. Cooperation requires informational alignment. Each party must know what the other wants. Early examples include domestication of animals, where dogs received food in exchange for protection of herd. Mutual cooperation rests on shared informational state. The more transparent the communication, the more efficient the coordination. 3. Digitization of communication. The historical trajectory of communication reflects expanding informational bandwidth. Letters gave way to telegram, which gave way to phone calls, emails, and eventually instant messaging and social media. Platforms such as Facebook, Instagram, and TikTok incentivize disclosure of private information, monetized through advertising and influencer economics. A TED Talk reaching 40 million viewers exemplifies the scaling of one-to-many communication beyond any historical precedent. The scope of informational flows has broadened from local to global, from synchronous to asynchronous, and from ephemeral to permanent. 4. Predictability, data logging, and transparency trade-off. Experiments in cognitive neuroscience, such as Libet's studies of decision-making, suggest that brain activity predicts human choices up to several seconds before conscious awareness. This raises questions about the degree to which human behavior is predictable and programmable. Digitization extends this predictability through data logging. Wearable devices track sleep, fitness, and biometrics. Genomic services sequence DNA. Blood tests are uploaded to platforms offering personalized advice. Short-term benefits include personalized insights, but long-term risks include surveillance, coercion, or misuse of sensitive data. Transparency thus brings both empowerment and vulnerability. 5. Non-zero-sum cooperation and comparative advantage. Economic theory illustrates that cooperation expands the collective pie. David Ricardo's principle of comparative advantage demonstrates that even when one nation has absolute superiority in producing all goods, trade can benefit both parties if each focuses on relative strengths. By analogy, increasing informational transparency allows agents to better align efforts, reducing inefficiencies and maximizing outcomes. As cooperation scales globally, transparency becomes less optional and more structurally necessary. 6. Towards infinite transparency. The trajectory of communication technologies and self-tracking practices suggests a future in which transparency tends toward infinity. What was once considered private, health data, genomic identity, geolocation, becomes part of a collective dataset. Cooperation in complex societies requires ever deeper informational flow. The endpoint may resemble a glass world in which privacy is nearly eliminated. Whether this produces unprecedented efficiency or dystopian vulnerability depends on how societies manage trade-offs between openness and autonomy. 7. Discussion. The infinite transparency hypothesis implies that transparency is not simply a cultural choice, but a structural feature of large-scale cooperation. Benefits include improved efficiency, predictive coordination, and innovation. Risks include erosion of privacy, exposure to coercion, and potential exploitation of vulnerability. The dynamic mirrors earlier transitions in digitization and datafication, where benefits initially dominate, but long-term structural risks accumulate. 8. Conclusion. Transparency is expanding because cooperation requires, from biological roots to global economies, The logic of information sharing has consistently scaled. Digitization accelerates this trend, pushing societies toward a horizon of infinite transparency. Whether this horizon represents liberation through cooperation or domination through surveillance remains an open question. But the trajectory itself appears difficult to reverse. Acknowledgement. This paper was developed with the assistance of AI-based tools. The responsibility for the ideas and conclusions rests with the author. References. Dawkins, 1976. The Selfish Gene, Oxford University Press. Unconscious Cerebral Initiative and the Role of Conscious Will in Voluntary Action. Behavioral and Brain Sciences. Ricardo, 1870. On the Principles of Political Economy and Taxation. John Murray. Zuboff, 2019. The Age of Surveillance Capitalism. Public Affair. Wikipedia contributors. Transparency, Behavior, Social Media, Libet Experiment, Comparative Advantage.